Hello and welcome to Drayton and Toowoomba Hauntings. Just when we think our journey into the land of Australia is complete, we find our way there one more time. This topic came about not by doing research on Australian cryptids, but when I was looking into information about the Bayland Cemetery in Guadalajara, Mexico. It is amazing how new stories can be found while searching up unrelated topics. This town and cemetery is said to have quite a few interesting hauntings, as well as quite a few actual photos showing the alleged activity. So let's see what this landmark has to offer. The Drayton and Toowoomba cemeteries have quite a bit of an interesting history. This site is located in Harristown, Queensland, Australia, and was built in the 1850s. The gravesite was built with different sections designated for different religions and creeds. The split in name is quite an interesting story, in that a man named Thomas Alford called his home Drayton, which soon became the name of the settlement in 1845. Within this area was a swamp that soon became Drayton Swamp, which later became Toowoomba. In 1852, Thomas set up a general store near the swamp with the name of Toowoomba General Store. Inadvertently, this name recognition became official in 1859, when a separate town was set up around the swamp with the same name. At one time, Drayton was seen as a priority in land surveys, but that all changed when in 1861 it was discovered that the town of Toowoomba had a population of over 1,100 people, and Drayton had only 320. From that point, the cemetery came under the main control of Toowoomba, but citizens from Drayton were buried there as well. The first documented burial was on March 25, 1952, for a 28-year-old man named Michael Gorey, who was a shopkeeper. Between 1868 and 1911, Aboriginal people who were buried in the plot were simply recorded as Aboriginal with an English name, such as Aboriginal James. In the 1960s, the cemetery was forgotten and fell into a state of disrepair due to nature taking over as well as vandalism. On October of 1974, the Toowoomba City Council reclaimed the property and restored it back to its original form. Unlike most older cemeteries that are kept untouched, this cemetery is still an active burial site, with over 45,000 separate graves being dug in 2008 alone. On October 14, 2009, the cemetery was officially recognized as an important landmark by being added to the Queensland Heritage Register. The town itself is frequently known as one of the most haunted locations in Australia, if not in the world. As many of you are aware, I like to give the history of a location first, but I'm certain you are interested in hearing about the hauntings that have been reported. The cemetery itself has quite a few unexplained occurrences that has been talked about for years, and as of late has been investigated by a Facebook group known as the Toowoomba Ghost Chasers. Many times people have claimed to see spirits walking about the graveyard, jumping over graves, and even hearing the sounds of footsteps by an unknown visitor. Unlike most locations, the group claims that these spirits are not shy and provide images of what they caught. This image appears to show either a woman dressed in black, or in the worst case scenario, what appears to be a Grim Reaper. In this image, the group states that it shows some form of spectral blue mist hovering over the graves. The final image is what many people call the woman in the red dress. This is the most commonly seen spirit, and according to the group, they claim that it is thought to be that of a woman named Elizabeth Perkins, who tragically was killed by a train in 1944. Although this same person has been claimed to haunt the railway station and is said to be attractive, always wears gloves, and carries an umbrella. While some of these images could be deemed suspicious due to them suffering from the same ailment that Bigfoot seems to have, always appearing blurry, the cemetery itself does house a lot of history that could harbor spirits. Residents of the graveyard include inmates of the Toowoomba jail that were executed, workers who died building the railroads, soldiers who died in wars, and not to mention the countless Aboriginal people who weren't given proper burial markings. Tie this with disrespectful vandalism and it just leads to the possibility of spirits finding unrest. Not saying the photos are without a doubt 100% real, but the history leans towards hauntings being possible. Moving on to one of the 18 alleged haunted houses in the town, we have to look at the property known as the Gowrie House, or later called the YWCA Hostel, or Young Women's Christian Association. The property was built in 1901 by prominent architect Henry James Marks for Alexander Mays. Originally a residence for Mr. Mays, it was later sold to a doctor named Albert Furness, who then sold it to the YWCA in 1945. Under their control, the house was a place of refuge for women and young girls, and also focused on education. Within this unsuspecting house, it is said to have quite a few interesting hauntings. This includes the sound of walking and whistling at night. The most famous occurrence is that of a woman wearing a gray dress that appears to be carrying a ring of keys. The sounds of the rattling keys can be heard frequently echoing through the halls. In the Oakdean house, for years reports have come in of visitors hearing the sound of a heartbeat beside them as they try to sleep. Outside of the unnerving experience, a spirit of a man dressed in a brown suit is said to pace the halls and even occasionally stop to look out the windows from time to time. The Downlands College has a ghost that appears to be on fire that is seen running around the property. At this same location, a female ghost and priest haunt a nearby chapel. In one report, 2 witnesses saw a female dressed in an old nurse's outfit walking out of the fog and vanishing into thin air just after the spirit looked at the 2 people. What makes things even more eerie is that in 1914, the college was used for a hospital for injured soldiers during World War I. This also makes it more creepier when thinking about the ghost that is frequently seen on fire. A photograph of a group of schoolboys appears to show one being that doesn't seem to fit with everyone else. We have seen this kind of image before, and while it doesn't mean it's fake, I want to point out something. Many state the spirit is dressed in the normal uniform, but everyone is in color, but it. Here is my problem. The photo looks colorized after the fact, and due to this, the person who touched it up may have missed the boy who was moving when the photo was taken. That was just something I wanted to point out. Now I'm debunking my own videos. The Royal Bull's Head Inn was built in 1859 by an ex-convict named William Horton. During its history, it served as a pub, a place to rest service animals, and an area for settlers to come. It remained relatively unchanged until it was sold to Richard Stephen Lynch and his wife Sarah in 1879. The Lynch family used the property as their home, which they called the Terrace, for over 90 years. At one point they did utilize the home for use as a post office up until 1952. After the last heir to the Lynch family passed away, the National Trust of Queensland acquired the property in 1973 and still owns it to this day. With the change in hands, the terrace was converted back to the Royal Bull's Head Inn once again. With so much history, the inn acquired quite a few ghost encounters that are quite spooky. During the morning hours, many people have seen the ghostly image of a woman in a nightgown walking carefully around the parlor room. Many believe that William Horton's wife is the ghost. There are 3 malicious spirits who like to cause havoc in a house, who are thought to be the spirits of men who died after smoking cigars that were laced with arsenic. Frequently their appearance comes with the smell of a burning pipe odor. An Asian man is seen walking into bedrooms, and it is said that in life he died after eating throat lozenges that were soaked in strychnine. One of the creepiest stories that are told is that a baby can be heard crying from a well located on the property. The final property I want to talk about is called the Ascot House, which was built in the 1870s for a man named Frederick Hurrell Holberton. This house didn't have a happy history, and that a 23-year-old servant girl by the name of Maggie Hume decided to end her life by drinking strychnine on July of 1891. The reason behind this behavior was due to the fact that she was pregnant and unmarried, which was seen as taboo at the time. Jumping ahead to 1984, when a woman named Lois Jackman bought the house. Immediately, Lois noticed that the walls were ice cold and that she frequently heard loud footsteps throughout the house. Even though she found these events odd, she didn't think anything of it until one night she walked into one of her empty rooms and felt fingers brush along her neck. She tried to rule it out with natural explanations, but eventually had to face the idea that she had been touched by a ghost. On occasion, the spirit form of Maggie can be seen walking along the hallways at night. I wanted to include as many stories as possible, but as I mentioned earlier, there are over 18 different locations of hauntings, so I wanted to be conscious of my time. What do you think about these stories and images that I have shown you? If you haven't yet, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, if you enjoyed what you just saw, please give this video a thumbs up as it greatly helps me out. Keep in mind that on Wednesday, I'll be having my official live chat at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I look forward to seeing you all there. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.